Congratulations to all of you. I'm really happy for you. I really am happy for you because after all this time, I'm kind of getting the idea of what you go through in a really short amount of time. There's a whole lot crammed in there. You ought to lighten up on these folks, okay? This is hard. This is tough stuff. But you're all headed toward various directions. Congratulations on that. I really do wish you all the best. This is a commencement, but what I'm not going to do is give you the kind of advice or lecture or what have you that people typically give at a commencement. I'm not going to give you wisdom I have learned from life. All right? I mean, what could I know? I'm only 29 years old. I have nothing to offer except beer stories, basically. What could I tell you, though, really, that you haven't heard a million times? It's all about the journey. Yeah. Like everybody comes right from vacation saying, you know, that ride to the rent-a-car shop was really the best part. Nobody. I can tell you, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it. Oh, no. That's not the case. If that were the case, your speaker this afternoon would be Jimmy Fallon. And I'd be hosting The Tonight Show. Actually, I'd be waking up from my 2 p.m. nap to host The Tonight Show. So instead, I'm going to tell you at the request of these fine folks here, something I do know, something a little non-traditional for an event like this. I'm going to tell you how to write a pretty good speech. And if you do the things I'm going to tell you, you'll be equipped not only to get started writing a speech, but to finish it and maybe to know what to look for as you learn about it over time. So let's just jump right into this. Composing the perfect speech takes two things, okay? It takes preparation and it takes structure. And both of those things are equally important. Don't let anybody tell you that you just sit down, start writing a presentation for somebody, and it's just going to roll right out and it's going to be perfect. That's not how it's going to work. So let me first take up this preparation thing. Now, I could talk a long time about what goes into preparation, but let me tell you just two things right off. Number one is you need to know before you begin what the big takeaway is. If you're going to go talk, if you got time for nothing else, friends and neighbors, figure out what it is you want people to have in their minds when they get up and walk away. Is it something you want them to do, something you want them to remember, believe, contemplate, get down and pray to? Whatever it is, that's what you want them to have in your mind in 5 or 6 or 7 words and no more. If you can't do that, you're not ready to write. A few years ago, I wrote a screenplay with a guy named Eric Stolhansky. Probably nobody knows that name, but if you've ever seen the movie Super Troopers, anybody ever see that? Yeah, you remember the bear at the end? That's my buddy. And so we got together, we wrote this screenplay, and actually it was his first draft. I wrote the second draft. We sit down, we're talking about it, and we're eating ice cream by a lake in Minneapolis. And he says, oh, by the way, do you have a title for it? And I said, no, but I'm sure we'll come up with something, thinking that I would have something between the lake and the ice cream and the car. And I didn't. So I think, well, I'll have something between the car and the hotel. And I didn't. And that was 3 years ago, and I still don't. And you know what? We haven't sold that screenplay either. Maybe we should put a bear in it. I don't know. But we haven't sold that screenplay, and the reason we haven't, I think, is because I didn't have that title, that setup, that what's it about thing in my head before I began. And as a result, if you said, well, Mike, what's that screenplay about? It would take me 2 or 3 minutes to tell you. That's not cool, okay? It's got to be right there up front. Now, here's the other thing about preparation that you want to keep in mind. Here you go. There's no such thing as writer's block. Doesn't exist. Sorry. If you raise your hand if you believe there's such a thing as writer's block. You're wrong, sir. It doesn't exist. Let me tell you what it is. I'll give you a better definition, sir. Writer's block is just the fear that what you put on the page is not going to be as good as what's up in your head. And guess what? It never will be. Can't be. Because they're very different things. It's like saying, this orange is almost as green as this chainsaw. It's not the same thing. You can't compare them. Things that are up in your head are already feelings and thoughts. Things that are down on the page are designed to elicit feelings and thoughts. So no wonder it is so imposing and so fear-making to try to write something down on the page, because you're trying to create an entirely different thing. It's like trying to build a Lego house out of Lincoln logs. Can't be done. So you hope to get as close as you can. And let me tell you how to get past writer's block, however you want to define it. Just start writing, okay? There is no inspiration that's going to lead you into suddenly having the big idea. You know, if you write for a living, inspiration is not going to be the catalyst for what gets happened. You can't wait for inspiration. You're like digging a ditch. You know, you don't go into Burger King and you say to the guy behind the counter, I'd like a Whopper. And he goes, you know, sir, I'm just not feeling it today. I'll come back in a few minutes and then we'll talk Whoppers and fries, okay? But you need to go away now. You can't do that, you know? If you dig in a ditch, you dig ditches. If you write, you write. And that's how that goes. The film critic Roger Ebert, who won the Pulitzer Prize, the first film critic to win a Pulitzer Prize, he said that you can't wait for the muse to alight on your shoulder. Because that's how Pulitzer Prize writers write, I guess. He said you can't wait for the muse. The muse alights in the act of creation. It is the typing on the page, the motion of the hand across the paper. When you begin to create, you begin to get ideas. For me, I've written this sentence. I invite you to steal it from me. Here's the first sentence. I have no idea what goes here. I'll come back later and replace it. And I can go from there. Because writing is basically rewriting. It's coming back, hitting it again, okay? So that's the big idea. A couple of big ideas from preparation. It's be sure that you don't fall victim to writer's block. And it is that you want to be sure that you know what it is in a handful of words that people need to remember. Very simple. Now, to talk a little about structure, there are lots of ways to structure a speech, stories, metaphors, just sheer personality. What I want to talk to you about is the classic structure, the simple structure that works in any situation. You ready? It's a little complicated, so I hope if you're taking notes, it's okay. You ready? The first part, there's some Latin in here, is called the open. The middle's called, well, we're going to be simple, called the middle. And I guess to build up for the end, we're going to call it the close. Open, middle, and close. And it follows the old thing that you've always heard. Tell them what you're going to tell them what you want to tell them, and then tell them again. It's really simple, but there's a way to get through this professionally so it doesn't sound like you're in the third grade giving a Johnny Tremaine book report, okay? So let's dress this up a little bit, not to make it dressy, like Mr. Detmer arranged for everybody to be dressy today, I think. That's a very inside joke you want to ask about this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The opening of a speech. Here's the magic word. If you remember nothing else I say today besides how funny I was, remember this. The opening of a speech is ARTS, arts. Acknowledgments, rapport, topic, and subtopic. A lot of people think they sound really smart when they don't bother to tell you what the speech is about. That's not cool. That's not the thing, man. Come on. Tell them what it's about. Start off with the acknowledgments, then tell them some connection, make some connection with them aside from the topic. That's rapport. And then tell them the topic and the subtopics you're going to cover. That's just what I did when I came up here because I am so experienced at this. I acknowledged the people right here on the front row. Then I made some rapport with you talking about the graduation here. Then I told you what I was going to talk about. And then I said I'm going to talk about structure and I'm going to talk about prep. Just like that. I laid it out. If you want to lay it out obviously to somebody and say, first, let me tell you my topic. That's fine. You think you sound juvenile? You do not. People are going, whew, thank goodness. They're glad to know what you're going to talk about because listening is hard. Look at this young lady sitting right here on the second row, Ms. Ferguson. She's sitting here. She's got her hands crossed in front of her. She's got her knees like this, and she's trying desperately to smile while I'm looking at her. Listening is so hard. You know, in a classroom, as Travis can tell you, you can play with your phone. You can go on Facebook. You can do whatever you want. But in this, you have to sit here and go, uh-huh, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, please stop. Uh-huh. That's how it goes. So if you're a speaker, anything you can do to acknowledge that the people basically don't want to be there and want you to sit down. Anything you can do to give them a map through this, to give them some encouragement, to give them some entertainment, you're going to do that. ARTS starts you out that way. Now, the middle of the speech, here's what you want to do. Those subpoints that you decided up front, up top, don't make those subpoints categories, like here's a bunch of important people in history, or here's a bunch of qualifications for some job. No, no. Tell us how to feel about it. First, tell us how you want the audience to feel about this sub-argument, and then back it up with fact. So don't say, here are some ingredients for a cake. Say, if we get these ingredients together, we can make a delicious cake. Don't say, here's the thing the military needs this year. No, say these are the things that, if we have them, we'll be able to achieve X, Y, or Z. And then back it up with a factual list of what goes there. Each time, 3, 4, 5 middles, whatever you need to have, right up there in the middle. Excuse me. Now you get to the end, and all you have to do is remind them of what those claims were, your 3 or 4 subpoints, whatever they were, and then wrap it up with this. Wrap it up with a call to action. What is it that you want people to do? I have a buddy who trains not presidential candidates, but he trains candidates for office. And he tells a story about a guy who was running for sheriff. He met with the guys in the local coffee shop every morning, was certain he was going to win. They all agreed with him. They all loved him. They're all good buddies. The election day came and he didn't win. He goes to the coffee shop. They sit down and chat, and he said, I'm really sorry I lost. And all his buddies say, man, I'm sorry you lost too. That's too bad. And the defeated candidate said to one of the men standing there, he said, well, at least I have the comfort of knowing you voted for me. And he said, I didn't vote for you. He said, why didn't you vote for me? You know why? You never told him to. You never asked. You never asked me to. If you want something, you got to ask. We know this lesson from career choice to prom night, okay? Travis wrote that line. You got to know what it is you want them to do for you, and then you got to get them to do it by asking them. You don't ask, you don't get. It's just like that, okay? That's how that works. Now, if you want to write a successful speech, this organization, matched with that kind of prep, is indispensable. I see the highway of communicators and speechwriters strewn with the detritus of guys who tried and failed, okay? And I have to know how to do it because I don't eat otherwise. And as you can see, eating is important to me. And I'm going to put it in another provocative way, so I hope you'll remember it. There's no such thing as voice. No such thing as the voice of a speaker. And I'll close with this story about that. A few years ago, I got invited to write for a gentleman who helped invent the internet. Not Al Gore. A man who really invented the internet. I got called because he's a physicist. I was trained as a physicist, it turns out. So naturally, I'm a writer. Ha! So that makes sense. So I went in to meet him, and we talked, and it went really well, I guess. But I just didn't feel like I was impressing him with my ability to do the job. So I'm rattling off the names of famous people I've written for. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There is no figure in pop culture from the last 30 years that you can tell to an 80-year-old man that will make him impressed. I'm going Ben Stein, Miss America, blah, blah, nothing. It's just like a dog showing a card trick. It's just kind of looking at me. So then I start going through cabinet secretaries, and I mentioned Donald Rumsfeld. His eyes lighted up. Don, he said, Don is my next door neighbor. Now, if you're a freelancer, do you know what this means? It means you get out the invoice and you add a 0 to the end. That's what that means. That's the neighborhood. No. So I meet with this guy. He says, send me what you wrote for my buddy Don. I'll tell you if you can do the job. Went home, got the thing. It was a speech I wrote in Brussels, Belgium, right before 9/11. So it's going pretty far back. Send it along to him. The phone rings the next morning. It's an 80-year-old man. And here's what he said to me. He said, where's my pizza? It was a wrong number, so I called again. And then he called and he said it was as if Don was in the room with me. And I got the job. Now, here's what he did not know, what he still doesn't know to this day, what I'll tell to you. When I wrote that speech, I had never met Don Rumsfeld. I had never seen Donald Rumsfeld give a speech. I had read a couple of speeches that Rumsfeld signed off on, read a couple of op-eds that he had agreed to, read some articles he didn't write at all, but he said these are some things that I believe, some things that are important to me to have in this speech. So, how in the world did I make it sound like Don Rumsfeld? So much so that this old man said it was as if he was in the room. Well, the answer is the old man was senile and had no idea. That's cruel. I shouldn't have said it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So much for number 4, I guess. That's it. No. I like you. You're good. He said, what it was is, I gave him a highly communicative, entertaining, and compelling speech. And when he says, I like the way Don Rumsfeld speaks, he doesn't mean Donald Rumsfeld has a certain set of habits that I like. He meant that when I hear Rumsfeld speak, I believe it. I want to act on it. I'm compelled to do something with it, and I'm not bored to tears sitting in that chair with my legs crossed hoping it's done. And I guarantee you that if I asked any of you, almost any of you, who your favorite speaker was, and then I gave you that speech, and I said, I wrote this for that speaker, most of you would go, yep, that's her, that's him, that's the one. Because it doesn't matter what the voice is. What matters is that you hit the structure, you make it compelling, you make it matter. That's how that works. Speech writing can be mastered. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but folks like me who make a living from it benefit from making it seem far more mysterious than it is. I hope I have wiped away some of the clouds and cobwebs from it. Congratulations again. Thank you. I am honored to be here 3 times.